this ain't parents out to lunch. No, this is parenting with the punch. Oh, this ain't parents out to lunch. No, this is parenting with the punch. Class is in session. Please be seated. Behaviors that get attention get repeated. Avoid the power struggle cause it will get you heated. Listen to Amanda cause she knows how to teach it. Yo, this ain't parents out to lunch. No, this is parenting with the punch. Oh, this ain't parents out to lunch. No, this is parenting with the punch. Yeah, yeah,
Hello, and welcome to Parenting with a Punch show. I am your host, Amanda Hool. I have a very special guest today, Serene Stevens. As you know, if you tune in to my podcast regularly, I love to have guests on the show that are in alignment and share the same love and light in working with children and parents and helping them to foster more or better relationships with their children. So Serene Stevens is the founder of My Sweet Pea and Me, a small consultation business dedicated to educating parents and teachers on topics that impact children ages birth to second grade. She has been an early childhood professional since 1999, which includes teaching and managing early child care programs and coaching other educators. She currently resides in the Bronx, New York with her husband of 15 years as they together raise their 3 children ages 15, 12, and 4. Let's give a warm welcome to Serene. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am good. Long day, but still going and having to kick into mom mode right now.
I hear you. Absolutely. So let's tell our viewers a little bit about your business and, some of your background.
Absolutely. Sure. So my background is in early childhood education. I have my undergrad was in elementary education. And I'm sorry because I hear knocking up here upstairs because my little ones are bouncing basketballs up there. And so my background is in early childhood education. My undergrad was in elementary education. My master's is in early childhood education. And with that, I have been a assistant teacher, and then a education director, and then an executive director of early childhood programs here in, of course, Manhattan and the Bronx. And so I did that. I've been in the field, as you mentioned. It's about to be 20 years. Crazy to think about. Now, a early childhood leadership coach. And so I do that on the side, or that's my part-time thing. And so I coach directors and principals and in the early childhood field. And then I have My Sweet Pea and Me, which is a small consultation business that I started about a little over a year ago, actually. And it started out as just a social media thing where it was me doing weekly broadcasts to talk about some of the topics that concern parents who have children that are between the ages of birth through second grade. Mm-hmm. And basically it was about my experience as a mom of that age group and my experience as a teacher and an educator with that age group. Mm-hmm. Now where I have expanded from doing the broadcast, I'm now doing consultations with other childcare, early childhood programs, mm-hmm. and also to do workshops based off of things that their staff need. Yeah. So working with parents. So parents email me and I do consultations in different ways with them about their children and whatever concerns that they're having or challenges.
Cool. Yeah, so we pretty much do, some of the same things. A lot of the parent coaching, although I don't know what it is, but I have, for some reason, just hate calling myself a parent coach, but the reality of it is, I don't know if it's because we hold our master's degree in education and a lot of the parent coaches that you see out there today just get the parent coaching cert. I mean, some of them, of course, I'm sure have the backgrounds in education, but I don't know. That's kind of just always been my.
I hear you on that. I don't. It's interesting because I call myself. I'm my title is a leadership coach.
Right.
Coaching, and I use that title for when I'm coaching and working with directors and educators. But with parents, I'm just like support.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
So, you being the specialist in the early childhood years, what would you say, or, I mean, how exactly do you feel about, parents really getting that support early on in the early childhood years and like the significance of it as opposed to getting that support later on?
Yeah. So my, I guess you want to call it my slogan or my phrase that I use a lot when dealing with parents and just that I think of a lot with my sweet pea and me is the phrase, pay attention early.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really big for me because the earlier that parents become aware and knowledgeable about stages of development and what's happening with your child, the better it is. It informs the way that you navigate and move with your children. The early years are so, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here when I'm speaking to you, but these years shape a lot of how they think about themselves and a lot of how they navigate around with others, and forming those relationships. Those social emotional components are built very, very early. And so, parents, I can't fault parents.
Right.
So, you can't fault someone for what they don't know and what they are not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's so important. I mean, even getting information that's so vital like this at such an early age will how you as a parent navigate with your child's teachers and school settings. Like if you have a clear understanding of what is developmentally appropriate for your children, then you will be able to have a stronger leg to stand on when you make certain demands at school. When you see certain things happening, you can go like, nope, not okay, not acceptable, not conducive to my child's growth and development. But you can't do that at the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting that you say that because so when I moved back to the New England area, the work that I was doing when I was living in Brooklyn was pushing into the private preschools and working with children ages 3 to 5, the social emotional development. They had to be delayed in 2 of the developmental domains. Okay. So of course we had the social emotional development, and then some of the others were. So typically the kids would get like physical therapy or occupational therapy or sometimes speech, but they didn't necessarily need to have a diagnosis, right? So when I moved back here, and then I had a couple, quote unquote contracts with directors of preschools in the Brooklyn area, as well as Manhattan. But so they knew if a child was struggling that I was their go-to person that they would contact. And they would, basically force the parents to get that outside support while they waited for an evaluation. Because as we know through the state, it can take, especially now, I think I've heard from parents that it takes anywhere from 6 months to a year. It's crazy.
It's
it's awful. But since I've moved out of New York, I'm hearing that it's just gotten that much more difficult. But anyways, when I moved here, I keep coming across working with directors, and because you've been a director, they're really uncomfortable to have that conversation with the parents. So it gets to the point where the child is either getting kicked out of the program when there could have been resources that they could have, enforced the parent to look into. The way I look at it is as a director, and running a program, it's your responsibility to make sure that those children, or at least you would hope that those children are getting the most support. And it just breaks my heart because, I had a director reach out to me recently, or actually I reached out to them first. And they wanted to have me come in, and she had said, I think we need a third party at this point. We're asking, what I charge and how many, and I was like, well, I really need to know how many hours, et cetera. And then they came back with, that they had a teacher that was getting her master's degree, specializing in behavior, which is all gravy. But she was in another classroom, so she wasn't going to be able to be there on a regular basis. And that she felt that the mom was just so overwhelmed because she was going through like the process with the state, to see if the child would qualify for kindergarten, but the child's 4. So it was just one of those things where it's like, parents are always going to be overwhelmed. I mean, parenting is not an easy job.
Really is not.
And it just blows my mind that, that now like this director has like kind of put it to the wayside. And I had to say to her, like, look, like, you putting this at the bottom of, the totem pole and not really paying attention and letting these parents know that you have somebody that they could pay privately to get that child support. It's not going to be forever, but This is the most crucial time. And it just broke my heart that I had to have that conversation with yet another director out here that's not willing to have that hard conversation.
Yeah, I think, and that's one of the things that when I go in and I coach educators and coach directors, specifically, the conversation surrounding children with challenging behavior, one of the things we wind up talking about is why is there this discomfort, with saying these things to the parents, right? So these children are here, and at this point in time, you with me, Amanda? Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point in time, you're not going to have a class where you have typical developing children across the whole board in
right.
Like at this point, what is typical development? You know what I mean?
Right.
You're going to have challenging behavior. That's going to happen. And so the thing about it is arming the teachers and arming the directors with the appropriate tools to be able to have these conversations. What does that look like? That looks like documenting and recording so that you have a leg to stand on to be able to say, hey, here's what I'm seeing, and also forming those relationships with parents to really, because it's going to be hard for you to have that conversation in September when you recognize that this child is going to, need extra help or support. Because honestly, if you've been doing this for a while, you can see those things probably in a matter of a week.
Yeah, I mean, you could see it. In my humble opinion, I can walk into a classroom and I can immediately tell you what the child needs support within like a very short time frame.
100%. I gave us a week, so not to just kind of,
Of course. Yeah, no, of course.
Absolutely. I can see it. So let's give it a week, and then we can just be able to say, here's what I know. Right. With that said, if we can see it within a week and educators can see it within a day or in a week and things like that, after a month, there should be substantial evidence to have a conversation. That's the one part of it. But then there's the other part of it where the parents need to be able to feel like this is a partnership with the directors of schools. And so the reason why I feel like sometimes directors are not confident in having that conversation is because, yes, if that's the only thing that you're going to be saying to that parent and they've been in your school for a month, I would feel apprehensive about saying it too. So what kind of relationship are you forming with the parent to find out, what are you seeing at your home? What are you, tell me about your experience with your child, because parents are, they're an integral part of their child's life. Mm-hmm. I think that directors have to understand that relationship forming part is very crucial. Mm-hmm. So that you can be able to have the confidence to say all the other things that might be hard to hear and say, Right.
I mean, I guess it's depending on the program, or, do you find that it's hard to sort of form those relationships? I mean, I think it depends on, at least through experience, I think it depends on the school. I mean, For the most part, I've worked in schools, at least in New York, where, you know, the directors were pretty heavily involved. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. And then I'm just running into like a different, I don't know if it's because we're a little bit more conservative here in Boston or what, but.
Yeah, it could be, you know, and like you said, though, it really does. The culture of the school dictates a lot of that.
Yeah.
The culture of the school definitely dictates that a lot. But I can say, you know, as a parent that, you know, if someone has to come to me with a report about my child, I'd love to know if you can tell me more things about my child than the deficit that you're seeing.
Right. Well, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, have you heard of the sandwich sort of approach?
Right.
Yeah.
Good, and then you slide that in there, and then you
another positive. Yeah.
Because that is the information will be received much better if you can tell me and paint a much more full picture of my child, right?
Right.
Many parents believe that their children are all wonderful and all great,
right.
even with atypical behavior developing, you know, they're still wonderful and great. They are, but it's really hard to hear that. And so, you know, I wonder sometimes if directors understand the importance of that kind of sandwich approach.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's probably, you know, who knows, maybe it's something at, you know, out here that I'll be able to sort of implement, but you know, they also have to have sort of those resources as well, you know, I mean, as far as the schools go, but it is just such an investment that, you know, that I think parents need to really recognize in their early years that, you know, you might spend a couple thousand or however much money, but that is carrying you over for a lifetime. I mean, the investment you make earlier on is going to save you boatloads when they get older.
Absolutely. And you know, it just makes it helps to not feel alone, you know?
Right. Yep.
Someone to bounce these things off of. That kind of resource is invaluable. You should definitely take advantage of it, you know? Yeah. So hopefully everything will, you know, pan out with that, but having great.
Yeah, seriously. So my next question too is you know, coming down to, you know, through your own experience as a parent, and sort of like the dual role of you and your husband, how important would you say you know, in helping parents really parent on the same page, and really like being that role model for your children when you show them a united front?
That's a good question. So, so my husband and I, it's interesting. We have found our rhythm now, you know, I feel like, and this is 15 years in, and I feel like we've gotten a rhythm and then we kind of lost it and got on it. And I think I would attribute that to the fact that as my children reach different stages in their lives, at times, either myself or my husband felt like we were more the experts on how to navigate with that situation or that stage. You know, we've exchanged words such as, you know, so my husband's background also is in early childhood education as well.
Okay. Yep.
But more with extracurricular activities, early childhood.
Okay.
You know, so he's a personal chef, but before that he did culinary programs for children.
Right.
So at times when we would be dealing with certain things with our young children, I'd say like, I've been in the classroom and I recognize what this is. It's very different from what you would witness. And so then I felt like I was more better equipped to be able to respond to whatever this was. And then there were times that he'd say, I'm a guy, and so these are sons we're dealing with, and so allow me to speak on this because I know what guys and this, that, you know.
Right.
So that would actually, you know, this is evidence of not being on a united front. And that happened, what would tend to happen is it becomes really unbalanced because we weren't hearing one another out. Because something very beneficial to bring to the conversation that if we would have just listened to one another, we would have realized, you know, I can take some of what you're saying and you can take some of what I'm saying and we can fuse together and create something that's beneficial to the situation.
Right.
Now that we're in that place, we have learned to, first of all, wait to make decisions on where our children move with certain things.
Right.
Until we've had our own conversation where we can share our views on why we think a certain thing should be handled in a certain way.
Right.
And we've come to a place where even when we disagree with one another, that we agree to disagree and, give each other a chance to just implement whatever it is that we're thinking should be implemented, and seeing how the chips may fall.
Right. Yep.
Coming back to it like, okay, and not saying like, I told you that wasn't going to work. Like, we're not
right. Yep.
going to say, all right, and pick up from that point on. So
right.
It's been very important. Children understand when parents have different approaches, and they will play that really quickly. Really quickly.
Yes.
They know to go to this parent quietly whispering their requests, because if the other one hears it, they're going to shut it down. And so in our home, it's a rule to be like, did you ask mom? Did you ask dad? And usually the kids, oh, well, can you just answer? No, we can't.
See, well, there you go. You set that boundary, you set that rule. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's very important, because they will pit you against each other, and you both as parents will be standing there quarreling, and they'll be on their, merry way doing whatever.
Right. Of course. Yep. Yep. So, I mean, obviously, the communication piece is a huge part. And, you ebb and you flow, you figure out, what works, and the fact that, the two of you can obviously, do that for each other, and then recognize very quickly that it's not working, which really is like behavioral management 101 anyways. I mean, you try something, right? Because a lot of it is trial and error. You try something, it doesn't work. And if you're paying attention, which hopefully you should be as a parent, hopefully, but we know that, again, it's not that natural for parents, which we understand. You figure, so you're like, okay, plan B, like what are we going to do next? And that's what you have. And that's where I think parents get lost.
Yeah.
They just stay stuck in like these ways and the old school parenting, and then they just end up becoming so stressed out, and it's gotten to a level of like, that they just don't know where to turn at this point.
True. I mean, and the thing is that, children are resilient.
Yes.
And, I think that that's really important for parents to realize. One of the things that I reflect on a lot is the fact that my 15-year-old, he's 15, and
right.
of the ups and downs and ebbs and flows of my husband and our approach, he's still standing. Like, my 15-year-old is still here, and we tried this, and we looked at each other and were like, "Ooh, that didn't quite work. Let's try different." And we were very transparent with our son, with our oldest. We're very transparent with all of our children on the levels that we believe that they can handle transparency.
Of course, yeah.
But we're transparent in the sense with our 15-year-old, where we say to him, listen, you are our first. That means that you are the one that we are trying a lot of different things out on. And so I know sometimes it feels like we're like, saying no to this 1 minute and then going, you know what, go ahead, not so bad, try it.
Right.
Or saying yes to something a moment and then going, you know what, we thought about it. Maybe not, or maybe not in that manner, and
right.
At that time, oh, you guys can't make up your mind. And we're like, no, it's that we're figuring it all out. And so it would help us if you can, one, bear with us, and two, help us to figure it out together, because it's your life as well. So let's kind of be all very communicative about it,
Yeah, work together as a team. Because, I mean, the communication with obviously your partner and your children, I mean, that's huge. If you guys can all have that open communication, because we want, especially at that age, we want our children to be able to come to us and to be able to have that, like, to be able to feel safe and be able to talk about any and everything, because we know that it can get really hard out there, and the bullying these days. And I mean, it's just, children are under an immense amount of pressure.
Absolutely. And I think that, our children I'd like to think that they are able to say a lot of things to us that I know that I say as a kid to my parent, and
exactly.
They do. And we give them that platform and that freedom because I have my goal, my thinking behind all of that is if they don't say and emote the things that they're feeling and want to say, it doesn't change the fact that the emotion and feeling is still there. And so I would like to give you a platform for it, because if I don't, these emotions, they have to go somewhere. You know what I mean? Your feelings, but they have to go somewhere. And so if I don't have a platform, I don't know then where it might go. And if it doesn't go anywhere, that means it stays bottled up, and that's dangerous. And so I don't want that either. So, our children have quite a large platform to be able to say certain things in our home. And
that's great.
A lot of places.
Right. Yeah. In a positive way, and it allows you to be able to move forward, and it helps them grow and, gives them that much more independence.
Absolutely.
I've been noticing lately too, and really just like honing in on the message of teaching children and parents, really, like, we're teaching more so parents, but teaching parents that they need to listen to their children. And we need to give them that space to be able to open up, because if we don't, and we're constantly in reactionary mode, and we're not, then it's going to be really, really hard from, like you said, from a very young age, because they bottle it up. And when you're young, we don't know any better. I mean, toddler age, it sits back in the amygdala, and that's the part of the trauma, and it does not get released until, you just never know when it's going to
absolutely
introduce itself again, or even know like how to even navigate that, or like what that situation was when you were a kid.
Absolutely. And let's think about, if you even think about the toddler stage, like you said it, toddlers who don't yet have the capacity to express themselves verbally and articulate their thoughts and feelings about things, it's bottled up, which is why tantrums happen at 2. Right. It's not even that it's bottled up, it's that it has to go somewhere. And so it goes of a tantrum. And so the thing with that, I think about it now as we're speaking, I've always given my children a platform to just express. And so for tantrums, I used to just clear the space and let you do what you do.
There you go.
You scream, you do what you got to do. And then when you come down from it, we can talk. And I'm going to talk at the level that you'll, understand.
Right.
But I gave you the platform to let it out because it had to go somewhere.
Right. And I think that can get very confusing for parents too, for especially like in the young years, the toddler age. I try and educate. I just hear often where parents they're trying to talk too much. They're trying to find out like, oh, well, why did you do that? And it's like, the child is like 3 or 4. It doesn't mean that they're not smart. And yes, a lot of kids will tell you, oh, well, I hit so-and-so because I was mad that he took my toy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they know like the antecedent, like, you just don't know. So I think just a lot of parents, oh, well, did you do that? I think just like acknowledging the fact that they were upset, right? And then kind of moving past it.
Yep.
Because I think parents just get too much in their heads, and they're trying to like overanalyze everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can say, that's not okay. Obviously, you have that conversation after it happened. Like, I acknowledge you it's not okay, whatever the boundaries are. And then you just keep going, right?
Right. I mean, and I think that I've seen a couple of different things. I've seen that where you're trying to overanalyze it. And, parent is trying to overanalyze it. And then I've seen it where they're not trying, where they are totally disregarding the feeling.
Right. You have to regard the feeling.
Right. So both are very, both are very dangerous to do, whether it's trying to overanalyze it, for the reason that you mentioned, and then just shutting down and disregarding the feeling, period,
Right. I agree.
It's, then that then builds a lot of, or destroys a lot of trust
Right. Yep. And the relationships. And that's where you have like the break. And you don't even necessarily know that that's happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, that's,
yep.
You said it.
Such important stuff here for all of these listeners that are tuning in. And we'll definitely have to collaborate again in the very near future. Thank you for tuning into Parenting with a Punch show. As always, keep asking for more. Visit my website, parentingwithapunch.com, to learn all the ways that you can work with me. Have a great
Yo, this ain't parents out to lunch. No, this is parenting with the punch. Oh, this ain't parents out to lunch. No, this is parenting with the punch. Class is in session. Please be seated. Behaviors that get attention get repeated. Avoid the power struggle cause it will get you heated. Listen to Amanda cause she knows how to teach it. Yo, this ain't parents out to lunch. No, this is parenting with the punch. Oh, this ain't parents out to lunch. No, this is parenting with the punch. Yeah, yeah,